So it's official, Logan Sargeant has been replaced by Carlos Sainz at Williams, and it looks like Logan Sargeant will be exiting Formula One unless there's another team that wants to pick him up. But just based on his performance, on his portfolio in Formula One, I don't think that's the case. So I've made a few videos on Logan Sargeant over the last week or two. If you want to check those out, I'll link them down below. It'll give you more insight into just everything else that might happen with his career moving forward in IndyCar. Logan Sargeant has been in talks with Prema Racing to join IndyCar next year. Now, Prema Racing is talking to a lot of drivers. It's not just Logan Sargeant. They don't really have a top caliber driver that they're really looking at right now that they want to secure. They're talking to a lot of drivers. They're doing a lot on the back end to build up their infrastructure, their organization, to get them ready for 2025. Again, I'll link my video down below that goes more into detail about that. So I think I saw either Valtteri. So right now, there's Logan Sargeant is in talks to join IndyCar. And as of late, Valtteri Bottas has also been in talks with some IndyCar teams of joining the grid if he doesn't get another seat in Formula One. Now, if Logan Sargeant doesn't get picked up by Prema Racing, then there's not many options that I see in terms of IndyCar seats that would get him. Because what you have to realize is Williams' budget for the year probably is more than the entire budget of all teams in IndyCar. So the resources, the funding, the money, the backing is so far less than one team in Formula One, right? So I forget if it was Valtteri Bottas or if it was Logan Sargeant, where they said if they go to IndyCar, they want to be a paid driver. I mean, they want to get paid, as a high caliber driver, right? The problem with that is the teams simply don't have that kind of funding to pay a driver to drive without them bringing sponsorship or money, right? Because, like I said, they just simply don't have the same amount of funding. Now, you can even look at, I think it was Junko's Holliger Racing, where they have August Canapino and Romain Grosjean. And I believe they said, even for next year, even with Romain Grosjean having 10 years of experience in F1, with having however many million followers on social media, with whatever, they're still not sure if they'll re-sign Romain Grosjean because they're not sure of the funding. They need to make sure they go and get sponsors and are able to afford the 2 seats next year. And that's simply the how it goes for most teams. The biggest team that you have are Team Penske with their 3 drivers, and I highly doubt they're going to add another driver or replace any of their existing drivers. Now, there is a charter system being in talks with IndyCar that you can have a maximum of 3 drivers, because Chip Ganassi has 5 drivers on the grid. So I don't see Team Penske making room for him. Chip Ganassi Racing, again, they currently have 5 drivers. If they do go down to the 3 charter team, well, they already have too many drivers. Next is Andretti Global, and I think they have talked to them in terms of maybe signing Logan Sargeant, and they said no, we're capped out. Or I think it was Del Porcher. Del Porcher is out of a seat right now, and when spoken with Andretti Global, they said no, we're not looking to fill in another seat. So that other big team is gone. Last one is Arrow McLaren. Yeah, the same McLaren that's in Formula One. They're also in IndyCar, known as Arrow McLaren, and that's also not going to be a team that's going to open up a seat for them, because they just signed Nolan Siegel to a multi-year contract. They just signed Christian Lundgaard to a multi-year contract, and allegedly Hy-Vee is coming as a sponsor. And then they have their main guy, which is Pato O'Ward, and that's not happening. So if any Formula One driver is coming with that kind of mindset of, hey, I'm coming from Formula One, I'm a high caliber driver, I need to get paid. Even if you get paid, you're not talking about the same money that you see in Formula One, right? One of the highest paid drivers in IndyCar is Pato O'Ward with Arrow McLaren, right? And the reason why we know this is because the lawsuit between Arrow McLaren and Alex Palou, it was Pato O'Ward's salary was revealed during that lawsuit, and I believe he's getting paid around $3 million a year, and he's considered a top driver at a top team that has a lot of resources, right? And that's one of the higher paying drivers at at one of the higher teams. Probably Joseph Newgarden probably comes close to him because he's at Team Penske and he's won the Indy 500 twice and yada yada yada. So that's not much. Even Carlos Sainz allegedly is signing a $10 million deal at Williams, and Williams is a backmarker team. They don't have the same funding as a Red Bull, as a Mercedes, as a Ferrari, but 10 million is still 10 million, right? I mean, you could probably I think maybe Haas had the lowest paid drivers with I think under 4 million, but it's still not the lowest paid driver at Haas is one of the highest paid drivers at Arrow McLaren, So you're simply not having the same resources that you have in Formula One. And if you go in with that mindset of I want to make sure I get paid, it's you're not seeing the same numbers that you did in Formula One, right? And that's simply the case. So, if I was to look at it, the two teams that I could see, not that I think they'll sign them, but if there was a chance, it would be Prema Racing and it would be Dale Coyne Racing. Now, Dale Coyne Racing is a funny team, not literally, but it's a unique team because if you look at their driver lineup, I mean, they literally switch driver every other race. No kidding, every other race, there's a new driver for Dale Coyne Racing. So what I could see happen is Dale Coyne Racing signs a Logan Sargeant or signs a Valtteri Bottas for one season. And after that one season, another team, after they perform and they show that they actually can be competitive in IndyCar, they'll sign with another team. Because if you look at, that's what happens with a lot of drivers, where they'll go to Dale Coyne Racing and then they get picked up from another team. Alex Palou, he's now a two-time IndyCar champion. He was supposed to be on the road to F1 as a reserve driver for McLaren. He started off at Dale Coyne Racing. Connor Daly, Takuma Sato, just a bunch of names have gone through. And I'm not saying they're great names or they turned out to be the best of the best, but there is a resume of drivers that first go as a rookie driver into IndyCar with Dale Coyne Racing and then get picked up from another team. Most recently is David Malukas, which he was with Dale Coyne Racing, and then his next season, which was this year, he signed with Arrow McLaren. He got kicked out of Arrow McLaren because he broke his hand and missed 5 races. I have another video on that as well. But that is another option where maybe for one season, not a multi-year contract, because Dale Coyne Racing doesn't do that. It's I'll give you a couple races, but maybe something like that to where I see one, Valtteri Bottas, if he doesn't get picked up, or Logan Sargeant goes into Dale Coyne Racing, and then you go from there. So those are my two main options, either Prema Racing or Dale Coyne Racing for a much more limited kind of race season. Now, a lot of IndyCar teams would like to sign a Valtteri Bottas, a Logan Sargeant, because their experience and their skills, and obviously you bring an audience, you bring a fan base, you have a well-known name, you can get more merch sales, you get a lot of more attention on your team. But simply, a lot of teams don't have the funding, don't have the resources to just pay a driver and not have them bring money or sponsorships or something to that degree. They need to keep on feeding the machine to keep on going. That's just simply how it goes. Doesn't matter if it's Formula One and NASCAR, you need to bring some sort of money. A lot of reasons why Formula One drivers don't last in Formula One is they don't bring money. They don't bring sponsors. They don't bring something. A lot of drivers on the F1 grid right now are there because of big money, because they bring a big sponsor to the team, and that helps the team pour more resources into the development to their organization. And that's just simply how it goes in motorsports. So let's say Logan Sargeant gets a seat in IndyCar. Does that make him competitive because he's coming from Formula One? I'm going to say a big fat no. And I have another video on this looking at Formula One drivers that are in IndyCar right now. And it's simply not a default answer that they're going to be better or be more competitive than other drivers because they came from Formula One, right? Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, Roman Grosjean. You have 2 reserve drivers in Pato Ward, reserve driver for McLaren. And then you have Pietro Fittipaldi, which he's a reserve driver for Haas. And again, they're not wiping the floor. They're not out there, getting top 3 every single race or top 10 every single race. It's not happening, right? So, Logan Sargeant, do I see him coming into Formula One or Valtteri Bottas and just wiping the floor because of their experience? I highly, highly doubt that. One, like anything else, you have to be in a top team that has more resources to be able to have the right teams, engineers, mechanics to build, to spec out your car correctly. And then another thing is both F1 and IndyCar have road and street courses, but IndyCar has ovals. I'm not the biggest fan of ovals, but that is a type of racing that IndyCar has that Formula One does not have. But then just everything is different about IndyCar to Formula One. I mean, go look at the street courses that IndyCar does, and then go look at the street courses that Formula One does, right? Like, if you look at Miami and Las Vegas, right? They spent millions of dollars like repaving the roads, making sure it's all fine and safe and up to standard to, you know, FIA standards. If you go look at IndyCar's street courses, I mean, they are so bumpy. The courses are so narrow sometimes. Like, you have almost 30 cars on the grid bunched up, like sticking together the whole time, and it causes a lot more yellows or reds or whatever. Like, it is such a different style of racing. I mean, you just look at the onboards of some of these drives, and it's just like, it's so bumpy. Like, the cars get thrown around, and again, it's a completely different type of car. It's a different kind of track. It's a different type of series. And you know, I truly don't think whether it's a Valtteri or a Logan, that because they're from F1, they're just gonna wipe the floor with everyone else because they're from F1. It just, in the past, it hasn't been proven to be true. And again, like, you have to at least get at a top team in order to get more, you know, have the odds in your favor to even be competitive. Let alone if you go down, you know, in a smaller team. It just, the odds are kind of stacked a bit more against you. Not that it can't be done, but just like any racing series, where if you're on a top team, you just have more resources at your disposal to make sure you have the best chances of winning. Anyways, this is a much longer video than I anticipated. Let me know what you think about Logan Sargeant. Would you like to see him in IndyCar? Would you like to see Valtteri Bottas in IndyCar? That would be crazy to see. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.